there, this is David and welcome to my review of Felseal Arbiter's Mark for the PC, Xbox, PlayStation 4, and Switch. Many years ago when I was in college, a game was announced by a small developer for the Game Boy Advance. Upon seeing screenshots, I was immediately intrigued, but unfortunately, it became stuck in development hell for a couple of years, so much so that they had to eventually port it over to the Nintendo DS because the Game Boy Advance had fallen to the wayside. The game took inspiration from the SNES greats, Final Fantasy VI, and Chrono Trigger. When it finally did come to fruition, it had some issues, but I adored it all the same. However, because it got raked over the coals by the critics, it ultimately failed, and unfortunately, the small developer ended up going under and quit producing games. Or so I thought. That game that they produced all those years ago was Black Sigil, Blade of the Exiled. And now the developers are back with another gem of a game that takes inspiration from one of the PS1 greats, Felseal Arbiter's Mark.
Personally, I had never heard of it until I made my video ranking the jobs of Final Fantasy Tactics, and there I was bombarded by comments saying that this was the true successor of the classic game, and after playing it, I can say that they were all absolutely correct. Felseal is a turn-based isometric strategy RPG that takes the job system of Final Fantasy Tactics, retools and reimagines them, and also adds quite a bit of challenge to boot, especially on the higher difficulty levels. But if you want to play casually, that's fine too, as there are 4 different difficulty levels to choose from. Of course, the first thing that I noticed was the graphics. The overworld and map screens are gorgeous. They kind of remind me of the watercolor graphics of Saga Frontier 2. However, that being said, the sprite and portrait graphics kind of look westernized, and some of the portraits especially remind me of something that you kind of see in Mortal Kombat or something. So it can be a bit jarring, but all in all, I think that it's well done, highly detailed, and very pretty. And speaking of the world map, it's very similar to Final Fantasy Tactics' map, except for a few quality of life improvements, such as there being no random encounters. And interestingly, time-sensitive events pop up here and there to add in more character development. You can still grind if you want to, though. Just go to the zone of your choice and use the menu to choose to fight a battle. Another really nice touch that the developers put in was level ranges of the enemies, as well as what crafting components drop in each area. But worry not, crafting is really easy here. You just choose the item that you want and boom, you make it. There's no crazy synthesizing like in the Atelier games or blacksmithing mini-games like in Dragon Quest XI. The story follows Kiri, an Arbiter, who's tasked with enforcing law and order, as she stumbles across a murder scene. Kiri arrests the murderer and then takes him to the local kingdom's prison, only for the immortals in charge of the land to appoint him as a marked candidate. Therefore, he's set free and sets off on a journey to become an immortal himself. As an Arbiter, though, Kiri can't touch him. He's now above the law, but she decides to follow him anyway, with the goal of ultimately killing him. There is a whole lot more to it, but what I just told you only covers like the first hour or so of the game, so I really don't want to spoil any more here. So now let's get down to the meat of it all, the combat. Essentially, if you've played Final Fantasy Tactics or really any other tactical game, you know exactly what this is all about, so I'm not going to bore you with all the minutiae here. But there are some really fun strategic additions. One thing I will say is this: if you don't use buffs and debuffs, you're going to die. And quick. The majority of the time you're outnumbered and the enemies are not afraid of healing themselves, debuffing your team, and targeting your weaker units in the back. You've definitely got to be careful, because it's challenging, but nothing that you can't handle if you're smart about it. That all being said though, I do wish that there was an option to skip some cutscenes, because I had to redo quite a few battles myself after dying horrible deaths. And speaking of death, it's one of the very few things that are handled differently from Final Fantasy Tactics. Here, if a unit dies, they're automatically brought back to life and ready for your next battle, but they're injured. The injury reduces all their stats by 10%, and it can only be cured by having them sit a battle out. That's a bit annoying, but a hell of a lot better than the permadeath in the original game. Another difference is the use of items. Basically, the game gives you a set amount of items that you can use each battle, but they never run out. For example, at the beginning you can use 2 potions per battle, but that's it. They are restored for the next battle, but it makes it so that you can't just buy like 99 of every single item and blow through the harder battles. I actually really like this, because it encourages you to strategically use the items offered to you. And while you can't buy more in shops, you can create more items and power them up through crafting. After each battle, you'll gain job points based not only upon what job you're in, but what units fought alongside you as well. This allows you to dabble in a whole bunch of different jobs and try out a plethora of options. The jobs are really imaginative too. Sure, you'll find your basic healer, wizard, and knight, but beyond that, there are some fun ones, such as the Plague Doctor, who dabbles in poison and healing, to the Knight and Templar, who can actually really tank for your team, to the Ranger, who snipes from afar with a bow and specializes in debuffing, and then the Gambler, who uses random attacks, and then there's even a Peddler who specializes in traps. The classes are varied and diverse, easy to access, and fun to toy around with. You're not going to be grinding for a year and a day on Mondalia Plains to get at the good stuff here because thankfully, there's really no grinding needed at all. Just normally playing through the game will give you ample job points to mess around with, and by the end of the first chapter, you'll already be at the good stuff. To me, that's really the joy of the game, fighting strategic battles that actually require thought, and then the preparation and planning of the future jobs. The game does a commendable job letting you know what each and every ability does, as well as how to access all of the advanced jobs. As you gain job levels in the basic jobs, more job classes will be shown in the job changing screen. And here you can see exactly what you need to do in order to unlock those advanced jobs. It's very user friendly as well as intuitive. There's no guesswork here, which I really do appreciate. I love writing down lists and detailing exactly how I want my units to progress. It's so fulfilling, and it reminds me a lot of how I used to play Final Fantasy Tactics. In addition to the basic jobs everybody can use, as you progress through the story, Kiri and her friends will gain access to their very own unique jobs as well. And, just as in Final Fantasy Tactics, each unit has their job abilities as well as secondary abilities that you can equip, along with 2 support and 1 counter ability. There are tons of customization options here. If you're a fan at all of tactical RPGs, you owe it to yourself to play one of the best ones out there. Give this game a shot because it's fantastic. If you like what I do on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link to it can be found in the video description. This has been David. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.